Not every nightmare begins in your sleep. Some begin the moment you press play. And if you're here now, you're already part of the story. Before we go further, hit subscribe, like this video, share it with someone brave enough to listen, and drop a comment telling me where in the world you're watching from. Because by the end, you might wish someone knew your location. The story begins on a cold October night. Daniel Harper, 32 years old, sat behind the wheel of his car, his eyes strained from a long drive. He wasn't supposed to be anywhere near Greywood Hollow. In fact, he'd only missed his exit by a few miles. A simple wrong turn. Nothing more. But some wrong turns are final. The highway signs had grown fewer, the trees thicker, and the road narrower, curling in on itself like it didn't want to be followed. The GPS on his phone flickered, then went blank. When he tried to restart it, the screen only glowed with static. And then, the town appeared. Greywood Hollow. At first glance, it looked like any other small American town. Street lamps buzzed with pale yellow light. A row of shops lined the street. Diner, barbershop, hardware store, all frozen in time. Daniel slowed, expecting to see someone, anyone. But the streets were empty. No moving cars. No pedestrians. Not even a dog barking in the distance. Just silence. Not the kind of silence you notice for being peaceful. No. This silence felt wrong, heavy, as though something vast and unseen was pressing down on the town, muffling every sound, even his own heartbeat. Daniel parked his car outside a diner. The neon sign above the door flickered once, then went black. He hesitated, but fatigue and curiosity tugged him inside. The moment Daniel pushed open the glass door, a bell jingled overhead. The sound echoed unnaturally long, as if the building itself was amplifying. Inside, it was like stepping into a photograph from decades ago. Every table had menus on them. Coffee cups sat half full, steam long gone. Plates of eggs and toast had grown stiff and gray. Chairs pushed back, as though people had left in a hurry. Yet no one was there. The air smelled faintly of burnt bread and cold grease. But the temperature was far too cold for a place that should have been closed up. His breath fogged in front of him. He took a cautious step forward. The floor creaked. And then, he heard it. Footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Coming from behind the counter. Daniel's throat tightened. Hello. His voice cracked in silence. Someone here. The footsteps stopped. The swinging kitchen door pushed open slightly. A soft creak. Daniel moved forward and peeked behind the counter. No one. Nothing but a line of old coffee pots and a rusted grill. The swinging door continued to sway back and forth, as if touched by an invisible hand. That was when Daniel realized something that made his stomach knot. Every single chair in the diner had turned. They were no longer facing the tables. They were facing him. He stumbled out of the diner, heart pounding. The night air felt thicker, colder. He wiped sweat from his brow and told himself he was imagining. Just fatigue, stress, his eyes playing tricks. But when he looked at the buildings across the street, he froze. The shop windows were no longer empty. Figures stood inside them, dozens of them, perfectly still, perfectly silent. At first glance, they looked human, but their faces weren't right. They were smeared, blurred, like wet paint running down a canvas. No features. Just vague impressions of eyes, a mouth, distorted beyond recognition. And all of them were staring at him. Daniel blinked. The figures didn't move. Not an inch. His body screamed to get in his car to leave. He rushed back, climbed in, and started the engine. Tires squealed as he sped down the road, desperate to escape. The headlights carved through the dark, and relief washed over him when he saw the road leading out of town. He pressed harder on the gas, eager for the first sign of the highway. But 5 minutes later, he saw it again. The same diner, the same row of shops. The road had brought him back to the center of Greywood Hollow. No, he muttered. He spun the wheel, took another road, faster this time. But once again, after miles of dark forest, he emerged into the same town square. The town wasn't letting him go. Daniel's hands shook as he gripped the steering wheel. His headlights caught something new, a tall building at the end of the street. A church, white paint peeling, doors slightly ajar. From within, he heard it, singing, not joyful, not warm, low voices, deep, in perfect unison, chanting words he couldn't understand. Something about it tugged at him. Against every instinct, he left the car and approached. The doors creaked as he pushed them open. Inside, the church was filled. Pews lined with people, heads bowed, bodies still. None of them moved. None of them breathed. And yet their voices rose in chant, echoing off the high ceilings. Daniel's stomach turned. He took a cautious step backward. And then, in perfect unison, every head lifted. Dozens of faces turned toward him. Not blurred this time, but hollow, empty sockets where eyes should be. Their mouths opened wider and wider, stretching unnaturally as the chanting grew louder, vibrating the very floor beneath his feet. Daniel staggered back, reaching for the door. But before he could touch it, the doors slammed shut with a thunderous crack, plunging the church into total darkness. The doors slammed behind Daniel with a violent finality. He spun, his palms pressing against the cold wood, shoving, clawing, nothing. They would not budge. The chanting grew louder, deafening, voices rising, overlapping, shaking the air itself. And then silence. It ended in an instant, as though someone had cut the sound out of the air. Daniel's breath came fast and shallow. His ears rang from the sudden stillness. A match struck in the dark. At the front of the church, a single candle flared to life. Its glow revealed the altar, dusty, cracked, but not empty. A book lay open, its pages yellow, covered in symbols Daniel had never seen before. But worse than the book was the figure behind it. A man, or something shaped like a man, draped in a black robe. His face hidden in shadow, his hands pale, too long, clutching the sides of the altar. "Welcome," the voice rasped. "You finally come." Daniel froze. His throat closed. "Double, what are you talking about?" I don't even know this place." The figure tilted its head, slowly, deliberately. "But it knows you." The candle flickered violently, and for a split second Daniel swore he saw faces in the front. His face, dozens of them, twisting, screaming, melting. Daniel bolted. He shoved past pews, sprinted down the aisle, and smashed against the door with a shoulder. The wood cracked, once, twice. On the third hit, the door splintered open and Daniel tumbled out into the night air. When he looked back, the church was gone. Only a field of dead grass remained. Daniel stumbled into the road, chest heaving. His car sat where he left it, headlights still glowing. He jumped inside, slammed the lock, and started the engine. "Just a dream," he whispered. "It has to be." He drove, faster this time, past rows of dark houses, past endless trees. The road stretched straight for miles. Relief bubbled in his chest. He could escape. He would escape. But when he rounded a curve, his stomach dropped. There was again the diner, the shops, the exact same row of buildings. Back in Greywood Hollow, he gripped the wheel until his knuckles ached. No. He turned left. Another road. Faster. Trees whipping by. His eyes stung with sweat. But 5 minutes later, he was back at the diner again. Every road circled back. It wasn't possible. Roads didn't work that way. But Greywood Hollow wasn't obeying rules anymore. It was folding him inward. Daniel abandoned the car. He couldn't bear the sound of the tires crunching against pavement that only betrayed him. On foot, he darted into a narrow alley between two boarded-up shops. The alley stretched far longer than it should have. His footsteps echoed. Shadows warped on the walls, bending in ways that didn't match his movement. At the end of the alley stood a house. Daniel stopped. His lungs froze. It was his house. Not just similar, not just close. Exact. Same front porch. Same chipped paint. Same cracked flower pot by the steps. His legs moved without permission. He climbed the porch. He opened the door. Inside was his living room. His couch. His rug. The faint scent of his cologne lingering in the air. The television remote where he always left it on the armrest. For the photos. Every picture frame was filled with blurred faces. His parents, his sister, friends, all reduced to smears of color, as if someone had scrubbed them out of reality. Daniel's hands shook as he reached for one. Cold, damp, the glass fogged beneath his touch. Then he heard it, a whisper. Daniel. It came from the hallway. He turned. At the end stood his bedroom door, slightly ajar. The whisper came again. Daniel, come here. His feet carried him forward despite every nerve screaming to run. He pushed open the door and froze. On the bed lay himself, Daniel Harper. Same clothes, same hair, same features, pale skin, lifeless eyes staring at the ceiling. And then the figure on the bed sat up, its mouth curved into a slow, unnatural smile. Daniel stumbled back. No, that's not. The other Daniel stood, moving in jerks like a puppet tugged by unseen strings. Its eyes never blinked. Its smile never faltered. Who are you? Daniel demanded. His voice cracked. The thing tilted its head, mirroring him perfectly. Who are you? It echoed in the exact same tone. Daniel's chest heaved. He turned and ran, crashing through the hallway, slamming the front door open. Cold night air hit his face. He didn't stop running until the house was swallowed by darkness behind him. But the whisper followed. Daniel, sometimes close, sometimes far, sometimes right in his ear. He covered his ears with shaking hands. It didn't help. The voice was inside him now, crawling through his thoughts. He stumbled into another street. Houses lined each side, identical, endless. Every window glowed faintly. And in each window, he saw it. Himself, staring out. Dozens of Daniels. Some weeping, some screaming silently, some pounding fists against glass. One raised a hand, and the real Daniel realized, with horror, that the reflection wasn't mirroring him. It was waving. The whisper came again, louder this time. Daniel, come back. He spun and saw a figure at the far end of the street. It was tall, too tall, shoulders scraping the eaves of houses. Its face blurred, constantly shifting between his own and strangers. And it was walking toward him. Slow, inevitable. Daniel's legs burned as he sprinted down side streets, ducking into alleys, pushing through backyards. No matter where he turned, the streets rearranged themselves. Some bent back into loops, others stretched impossibly long, lined with houses that all looked exactly the same. The figure followed, always at the edge of sight, never rushing, never slowing. Once, Daniel tripped. He looked up, and for a split second, the figure was closer. Close enough to see its mouth. It was smiling. Desperate, Daniel ducked into another door. The door creaked open, revealing a long hallway. A school. Children's drawings still lined the walls. Crayon sketches of smiling suns and stick figure families. But the faces on the families were smeared or erased. From deeper inside came the sound of children laughing. But the halls were empty. Daniel walked forward, each step echoing. Classroom doors stood open, revealing rows of desks. Every chalkboard filled with strange symbols, circles, lines, marks that seemed to crawl when he looked too long. The laughter grew louder. Then it stopped, replaced by whispering. Hundreds of voices, saying his name in perfect unison. Daniel, Daniel, Daniel. He clapped his hands over his ears, shaking his head. Stop it, stop. But the whispers only grew. He ran into a classroom and froze. On one of the desks lay a notebook. Old, worn. He picked it up with trembling hands. It was his childhood diary. Every page written in his own handwriting. His secrets, his fears, even things he didn't remember writing. And at the very end, new words. Words he had not written. You never left. You never will. Daniel dropped the diary, the pages fanning across the classroom floor like feathers. His pulse hammered. The whispers still crawled across his skin. He staggered into the hallway. But it wasn't the same hallway anymore. It stretched. Longer. Narrower. Doors multiplying on both sides, stretching into the distance, warping like funhouse mirrors. The lights above flickered. The buzzing grew louder, pressing into his skull. He turned left. Another hall. Turned right. Another. Endless. Each corner led only to more corners. Each step heavier than the last. And still, his name. Daniel. Daniel. Rising and falling like tide. He screamed, "Leave me alone." His voice ricocheted off the walls, but the whispers didn't stop. He broke into a run, his shoes slamming against tile. Doors flew past him, dozens, hundreds. The buzzing lights above began to die one by one, swallowing the hallway behind him in total blackness. And no matter how fast he ran, the darkness chased him. He darted through a doorway, slamming it shut behind him. Silence. Daniel leaned against the wall, gasping. Slowly, he lifted his eyes. It was a dining room. A long wooden table stretched before him, candles flickering along its length. At the table sat people, his mother, his father, his sister, his best friend from college. Faces familiar, comforting. For a heartbeat, relief surged inside him. Mom. His voice broke. They turned toward him, and his relief curdled. Their faces weren't faces, just blurred smudges of flesh, mouths opening and closing silently. Their hands tapped the table in unison, an uneven rhythm like a heartbeat out of sync. Daniel stumbled back. No, this isn't real. The mouths moved faster, wider, stretching grotesquely. Though no sound came from it, Daniel heard the voices inside his head. Stay with us, Daniel. Stay forever. The candles flickered violently. The blurred faces began to shift, forming his own face. Dozens of Daniels grinning back at him from the table. He screamed and bolted, tearing through another door. It opened to a staircase, narrow, descending into blackness. He hesitated at the top. The air that rose from below was damp, metallic, like blood mixed with earth. But behind him, the whispers swelled again, pushing him forward. Step by step, Daniel descended. 1 flight, 2 flights, 3. The staircase kept going. He lost count. His legs shook, lungs burning, but the stairs never ended. Every few steps, he heard footsteps above him, matching his own. If he stopped, they stopped. If he moved, they moved. Someone was following, but when he looked up, there was no one. At last, the stairs ended. The basement was a vast concrete room, larger than any building above could hold. The ceiling dripped. Puddles spread across the floor. In the center stood a single mirror. Daniel's chest tightened. He approached cautiously. The reflection staring back was wrong. It was him, but older. His skin pale, stretched thin. His eyes sunken, lifeless. His lips cracked. And then the reflection spoke. You've been here longer than you remember. Daniel staggered back. No, I just got here. The reflection smiled. Look again. Daniel glanced down at his hands. The skin was pale, wrinkled, his nails yellowed, his breath hitched. He raised trembling fingers to his face. His cheek felt sunken, foreign. He turned back to the mirror. The old version of himself pressed a hand against the glass, and a crack split down the mirror center. From the crack, voices poured out. Children's voices, laughter, singing, whispering his name. Shadows spilled onto the floor, small shadows, moving fast. Daniel spun, his eyes darted. Figures darted through the room. Children with blurred faces, running in circles, laughing. One stopped in front of him, tilted its head. Its face cleared for just a moment. It was Daniel, not the man, not the adult. The boy, 8 years old, smiling with wide, innocent eyes. The boy Daniel whispered, "You never left, remember?" And then the boy's face smeared, stretched, dissolving into static. The mirror shattered completely, glass spraying across the floor. And from the shards, it emerged. The tall figure, shoulders hunched, head scraping the ceiling. Its face rippled between Daniel's, the blurred family, the boy, strangers he'd never seen. It took a step forward. The ground quaked. Daniel stumbled back into a wall. No doors, no exits, just concrete closing in. The figure leaned down, its mouth inches from his ear, and in his own voice, it whispered, "You were never meant to leave." The world folded. The walls bent inward, curving, spinning. The basement melted into the hallway again. The hallway into the diner into the church. Every place at once. Figures filled the spaces, his reflections, his family, the children, the blurred watchers in the windows. All chanting, "Daniel, Daniel, Daniel." Their voices merged into one deafening roar. Daniel clutched his head, falling to his knees. I'm real, he screamed. The world seemed to laugh. And then, silence. Daniel opened his eyes. He was standing outside again, in front of his house. The same chip paint, the same cracked flower pot. But this time, the door was wide open. Inside, he could see the shape of someone lying on the bed. Himself, pale, lifeless, waiting. Daniel's legs moved on their own. Up the porch, through the door, down the familiar hallway. The air inside was thick, stagnant. Every breath tasted of dust and rot. He reached the bedroom. The door swung wide as touch. There he was, Daniel Harper. His body sprawled on the bed. Skin gray, lips blue, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. Daniel's stomach turned. No, I'm right here. I am alive. I am. The body sat up. Its head turned toward him with a sickening creak. Its mouth pulled into a too-wide grin. And then it spoke. Are you? Daniel stumbled back, shaking his head violently. I am alive. I know I'm alive. The doppelganger swung, its legs over the edge of the bed. It stood, every movement sharp, puppet-like but deliberate. You're not Daniel anymore, it whispered. You're only the echo that stayed. The doppelganger stepped forward. Daniel pressed himself against the wall, but there was nowhere to go. You left this place once. It continued, voice low and cold. But Greywood Hollow doesn't lose what it claims. It just replaces it. It reached out a pale hand. Daniel froze, unable to move. Do you remember, it whispered, what your reflection looked like earlier? Daniel's chest heaved. He remembered, the pale skin, the wrinkled hands, the lifeless eyes. That wasn't the future. That was now. He was the reflection. He was the leftover. And this thing is smeared. Daniel's throat closed. Tears streamed down his face. And then everything went dark. When Daniel opened his eyes, he was standing in the middle of the road. Morning sunlight glowed faintly on the horizon. Birds sang in the distance. The world looked normal again. His car idled nearby, as though it had never moved. Relief crashed over him. Somehow he was out. He climbed in, slammed the door, and sped down the road. No looping streets this time. No blurred figures in windows. No whispers. Just the forest thinning. The highway signs reappearing. He was free, or so he thought. Hours later, Daniel pulled into a gas station miles away from Greywood Hollow. People bustled in and out. Normal, alive, unaware of the nightmare he'd endured. He stumbled into the restroom, splashed cold water on his face, and looked into the mirror. At first, he saw himself. Then his stomach turned. The reflection smiled. But Daniel hadn't. His reflection's lips curled, stretching too wide, revealing too many teeth. And its eyes weren't his. Daniel staggered back, heart pounding. He blinked once. Twice. The reflection was normal again. Just him. Just Daniel. But deep down, he knew. The reflection was real. And he was the echo. Greywood Hollow doesn't disappear when you're weak. It follows. It waits. Every wrong turn. Every flicker of a light in the corner of your eye. Every time your reflection lingers a little too long. Greywood Hollow is there. Watching. Smiling. Waiting for the moment you realize you never left at all. And now, it knows you're here. You listen. You followed Daniel into Greywood Hollow. So tonight, when you look into a mirror, pay close attention. Look long enough. Long enough to see if the reflection smiles before you do. Because if it does, it's already too late. If you're still here, you've survived the story. For now. Don't forget to subscribe, like this video, and share it with someone you think is brave enough to face Greywood Hollow. And in the comments, tell me, when you look in the mirror tonight, will you see yourself? Or will you see the thing that left the hollow in your place? Check your reflection, just to be sure.